was some other kind of serpent that didn't crawl on its belly. I started thinking about dragons, and I thought, is that why in ancient writings they're depicted as upright? Is because then they are down on their bellies? I don't know. Who knows exactly what this being was, but it clearly was under the power of the enemy. And then it talks about a very distinct piece of history here in verse 15. It says, he will strike your head and you will strike his heel. And he's talking about the woman's offspring. That would be Jesus. While he will strike Jesus' heel, which is a blow, right? Jesus will strike his head, which is a blow to death. Like the head, if you blow the head, you're going to die. If you strike the heel, you're going to be wounded. Well, Jesus went to the cross, but he wasn't. He didn't stay dead. He came back. He was resurrected. The implication here is that what's going to happen to the serpent or the evil one or the one who is empowering that serpent, meaning the enemy, Satan, what's going to happen to him is going to be absolute devastation and obliteration versus Jesus is going to be wounded and he will suffer a while. So that's kind of a foretelling right there. He also says that you're going to be punished, woman. Your punishment is, I'm going to sharpen the pain. And there was obviously some nerve endings when babies were had, but he said he was going to sharpen it. And in pain, you will give birth. Not just uncomfortableness as it hits some nerves, but it's going to be agonizing pain to give life. Because she was so thankful that she could give life. And because she had also taken life, he is now going to make that a painful experience instead of a joyful experience. It's still joyful to have life, but not without pain, he said. And to the man, every single day of his life was going to be toil. All the work that he did, the ground that he had been in charge of and enjoyed tilling like God did, it says the ground is cursed because of you. So now, what's that mean? Not just animals, but nature. You know, I think maybe volcanoes were beautiful eruptions of lava. And they weren't devastating. They weren't destructive. But then it changed. I just wonder, what was it like before? That it may roll down a hill, but it didn't burn it. But now it does. Now it destroys it. All that was good was flipped to being evil. And it says, all your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it. So people think, well, but she goes through childbirth. That was one time. He's going to suffer every day of his life. And just scratch to be able to live, to make a living and to live. And you think, make a living, they didn't have money. That's an ability to sustain is going to be a miserable experience. And really, that is the good news. Because he should have destroyed them completely. They betrayed him. We have betrayed God. And we deserve much more than we've gotten. He says that the thorns and the thistles will grow, but you will still eat of the grains. By the sweat of your brow, you will have food to eat until you return to the ground from which you were made. And that is the famous line that's often uttered at funerals, which is, for you were made from dust, and to dust you will return. And then it goes on to say that Adam named his wife Eve. Now this is a recounting again, because she's the mother of all who live. And the Lord made clothing from animal skins. Isn't that interesting? They were wearing plants, fig leaves. And now an animal's skin is their clothing. What does that mean? An animal had to be sacrificed. It's a blood offering. It's blood sacrifice for their sin. And that skin was covering them back over. Remember, before they were covered. Now that blood sacrifice, that skin of the animal is now their covering. Now we have a covering as the blood of Christ. Are you seeing this analogy here? This was written thousands and thousands of years ago. The fact that this whole story will pull together in the end is stunning. I do not believe that man could have come up with all of this. Even people who really know the Old Testament, they wouldn't have written the new one. So it's like this, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then the Lord said, look, the human beings have become like us, knowing both good and evil. What if they reach out and take from the tree of life? Remember, that was the other tree. Well, the tree of life means you live forever. Well, now, if you're sinful, you don't want sin to live forever. So what does he have to do? He has to banish them from the Garden of Eden. And then at the very end of the chapter, it says that he stationed a mighty angel to the east of the Garden of Eden, and he placed a flaming sword that went back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. There's no way to the tree of life now. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. The human relationship with God is ruined. All the wonderful promises now, they're going to have to suffer going through all these things. Instead of enjoying it, it's going to be awful. Instead of this wonderful walk with God, there's going to be more and more bad news coming, y'all. And it sounds like a very sad story, and it is one. It is a very sad story. If you've ever seen the cross, it's a sad, miserable horror of a place. And that's what ultimately happened right here. The need for the cross. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.